This has been done by the Indians. They have very sophisticated propaganda.
We are now breathing fresh air in this country. Our Islamic way of life, even the khutbahs that were read out in the mosque were censored.
These army niggers still believe in secularism. We are a Muslim country. When you subscribe to secularism, then you are rejecting the two-nation theory.
If Sheikh Mujib had respected democracy, daughter may not have dared to sell the country to the Indians. Raw would simply pick up somebody and just vanish. They would take him to India.
We have to develop a nuclear treaty with our former adversary, Pakistan.
Indians have been talking about using a blitzkrieg operation to take over 13 kilometers of our northern territory.
Pakistan is the most reliable, trustworthy security ally of Bangladesh.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Thank you so much for being on the show. And thank you for accepting my request to be here and to have a brief conversation regarding a few issues that that pop up in our minds over here in Pakistan. And I know it's quite late at your side. It's almost 9:30 p.m. right now. So I'll start the show and I'll start asking questions, and I'll try that we may keep it brief. So, sir, first of all, I was going through your recent clips. One was with the Delhi Hassan with the five pillars, and then there was another clip, and we got to know that there are people over there in Bangladesh, in Dhaka, who think differently and who have a very critical mind and who would want to have different ideas with regards to regional engagements. So my first question will be regarding, or in the context or background of that conversation that you had with the different people over there. Following the political upheaval that led to Hasina Wajid's ouster, in your view, what are the biggest internal challenges facing which Bangladesh is facing today, particularly in relation to its national identity and sovereignty? Is there a growing divide within the population regarding the country's past, present, and future, or you think that it's going to sustain through this interim government?
Thank you very much for having me. But we are now breathing fresh air in this country. For almost 15 years, we've been subjected to a fascist rule, and we had no freedom of the press. Everything was curtailed. And as time dragged by during the last 15 years, progressively, we lost all our democratic rights, and Hasina was totally under the influence of India, which led to in the Indian intelligence services interfered directly with our statehood. We have never had this sort of a reality ever before. Even 5 years ago, under the Hasina rule, she had never dared to apply this sort of restraints and this sort of impositions, which made us feel that we were almost becoming an Indian satellite state. And the way the Indian intelligence and its raw penetrated into every sphere of life, not just Hasina's government, in the Indian intelligence had penetrated into our bureaucracy, our culture, our Islamic way of life. Even the khutbahs that were read out in the mosque were censored and tailored to fit in with Hasina's perceptions. That was unfortunately the worst part. And we almost lost our freedom. We thought there was not going to be any escape from it, because even the armed forces were subjected to the Indian penetration. Even in the intelligence services of the armed forces, things were happening. So it was almost like a point of no return. The more we discussed, the more we talked among the institutions, it was revealed and exposed that all is lost, that we can never reverse back to normalcy, and that when we thought of the missions of other countries in Bangladesh, only the United States was able to penetrate into the reality to the extent that Americans had openly exposed the realities of all the institutions being penetrated by alien forces. And the United States had promised that there would be some protection for the civil society, that there would be some support in the US for the youth to expose the limits. But then it all simply withered away once the government's machinery applied itself. The most dangerous role was played by the police and the services called Rapid Action Battalion or RAB. There would be people who would just vanish. We call it in Bangla, we call it goom. Goom means a Bengali word meaning vanish. The culture of
It's the
goom.
same in Urdu, yes.
It occurred, there were even rumors that Indians in raw could even drive into the country through the borders, and they could simply, pick up somebody and just vanish. They would take him to India. That's even such rumors were there. Really, what happened was unprecedented, God given, that we were able to get out of it. The student community, especially the non-political students, they had seen the whole thing. They grew up to their beyond their teenage, seeing that they could never apply their right of vote. Three sort of elections, so-called elections, were held in 1914, 1918, and then 1920, and that was 1922, I think. 22, or was it? Yeah, 22. All of these elections were really, there was really no voting. Everything was, and the student community realized that they were growing up, they had lost all their teenage without ever casting their vote. And the most exciting part was that our female students were very vocal and very encouraging towards the male students to revolt. Some of the female students studying serious subjects at the university, like microbiology or biochemistry or applied physics, these female students who were always into their books and serious studies, looking for a future, they suddenly came out and they started making speeches which came out of their soul, and when they spoke, the male students also felt extremely aware that they owed something to the nation. The entire university student community revolted in a manner which was unprecedented, unheard of. They went out to the streets, they spoke to the policemen on the streets, they appealed to the country folk, the bureaucrats, the military, the judiciary. They asked them, for God's sake, you've got to stand out for the truth. And the country was immersed in massive corruption. You must have read about it.
Yes.
Millions and millions of dollars were simply, stolen away. There were some of these big business houses which were totally under the control of the Army League government, Army League structure. And the money power went into millions all over. There were other countries, and we came to know, and we were absolutely stunned that if the money power was used so blatantly, you could simply buy off, people and the institutions. So all of it simply mesmerized the people when the students came out in the streets. And as fate would have it, the government and the Hasina's party, they were so arrogant and they were absolutely so overconfident. And even the Indians, their intelligence simply failed to read the whole thing. The government and its party, the Awami League, decided that the use of muscle power, even the use of police shootouts would work. And when it reached the level of a confrontation, people simply came out in the streets in thousands and thousands. And then, we saw that not just the police and the paramilitary forces, but there were strange looking people in the city who appeared in cars, in vehicles, in microbuses. They didn't look like the Bengali, having the Bengali features. Some
Okay.
of them had bangles on their hands. Some of them wore rings on their ears. They would suddenly appear, start shooting blindly, and then disappear. And then we realized that these were aliens, people from outside the borders who may have entered. So it seemed that it was a totally well-planned operation, a blueprint chalked out to suppress, the outburst. But the Hasina had planned that she would go for extreme bloodshed if necessary, and she had threatened it that way. Fortunately, and God helped us, there was some divine power. But when the ultimatum was given by the students, the entire nation, even rickshaw pullers, came out on the street to support the students.
Yes.
Small boys filled up jerry cans with water to let the students drink the water and feel comfortable. The whole, country united together against this army. And then when the police fought back and realized that it was not going to work, and when bodies fell one after another, the university students were being shot at. This was something, it was exposed in the whole world. And we were amazed to see that Western media, television networks even had headline news about Bangladeshi students.
Yes.
And it even created a sensation in neighboring Calcutta. We saw Indian media in Calcutta, the Jadavpur University students and Calcutta University students brought out processions in our favor, in favor of our students. And they revolted too. They said, we are with Bangladesh. Even we saw in Pakistani media too, there were students in Pakistan who even carried Bangladeshi flags.
Yes.
So, it was something, it created a global sensation. And finally, we all saw what happened. Hasina had to fly away to India.
Okay,
So
sir.
I would stop here and let you
Sure.
ask.
So my next question will be a bit of something which, like you said, that there was a kind of environment already prevailing over there, which led to all these events. You got your freedom, like you said, and you got your first democratic right to express yourself freely in your country. But at the same time, there was a kind of construct, or there was a kind of sense which was prevailing over here in Pakistan at our side, that the creation of Bangladesh was kind of a plan which was orchestrated, or it was hashed into in the Indian dominion. So how do you see that? Do you think that how do you perceive this idea? Do you think that this was something which was done and created by India, or it was something which was about to happen and it had happened in 1971?
No, it sort of happened with obvious, implications, with obvious denial of democratic rights of the people. India simply utilized the opportunity. It capitalized. Even until May, June, July, August of 71, the Indians were not sure whether to directly intervene militarily. It was, of course, the great Indian strategists at the IDSI, Institute of Defense Studies and Analysis in Delhi, the director, Mr. Subramoniam, whose son is now the current foreign minister. He's the one who drafted the blueprint and asked Mrs. Gandhi that this was an opportunity to break up Pakistan. That such an opportunity would come only once in a century, and we should utilize. In fact, in Bangladesh, we always believed that if we had to fight it out for democracy, we will fight it out ourselves. We never expected that we would have the Indians to enter our territory. It was absolutely, a very repulsive thought that the Indians would have to intervene for us. It would have probably taken some more time, or it would have probably involved a great deal of lives. But ultimately, even without the Indians, we could have achieved our freedom. But we were really not ready for it. If the Indians capitalized, it was something that they did for their own interests. We had our own ambitions to secure our sovereign rights, to live with dignity. That was the whole thing. Our approach, when we were forced to take up arms, when people really, in 1971, it was just the question of dignity, self-respect, that we thought that we were going to be enslaved. Indians acted on their own interests. The Indians don't even acknowledge the role of our freedom fighters, not easily, unless they are pressured to accept it. They only say that now eventually they started admitting that without the Mukti Bahini, they were like the eyes and ears of the Indian forces. We never really wanted the Indians to, break up the country and claim that they have broken up Pakistan the way they tried to expose it. For us, it was extremely embarrassing and it was extremely shocking that being Muslims, we allowed India to, avail such a attitude and such an opportunity. That is why Mrs. Gandhi said in the Indian Parliament in 1971 that we have taken revenge for 1,000 years of enslavement. This was something we never liked. We as Muslims, we never liked it. And we realized that we were now going to have to fight out the Indian encroachment in our country. For 50 years, we have been facing the Indian determination. It has never been like this before, in the last 5 years, suddenly the Indians decided that they would alienate us from our relations with China. Our entire military partnership, purchase of arms had been only from China and Western sources. We had never purchased any arms from India, and we had always treated India as the only enemy country against which, if ever we have to fight, we will fight. But then in the last 5 years, Hasina went on to make agreements, compromised our sovereignty, and it reached such a point that we don't even know today what sort of secret treaties she might have arrived with the Indian Prime Minister. It was just between her and the Indian, ruling elite. And one reason why perhaps it would be very difficult for the Indians to hand over Hasina, although we have asked for her extradition for a trial. But the one reason why they might hesitate to hand her over is because she knows what she had done, the treaties she had signed. And if they are exposed to the world, it would probably embarrass India. So that may be a powerful reason why, the Indians will be very cautious with her. But then, as I said, the opportunity was given to India to break up Pakistan. And they availed it fully.
So, sir,
that's what happened.
The legacy of Mujib was there, Mujibur Rahman. I understand, or we understand over in Pakistan, that it is because of the dictatorial rule of Hasina Wajid for last 16 or 15 odd years that this was culminating, and this was bursted. This was something which bursted out in form of student protest. But what we see right now in Pakistan is that people, and students especially, are trying to eliminate or obliterate almost everything which is related to Hasina Wajid and his father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. So why is it happening over there? I mean, I can understand towards Hasina, but why the anger is there towards Sheikh Mujib?
You see, it varies. The attitude towards Sheikh Mujib varies. As the way we are learning these days, there are people who like to treat him as the father of the nation. There are people who would like to see his picture hung on the wall. But right today, we saw the Supreme Court verdict that it is absolutely illegal, as per the Constitution, to treat him as the father of the nation. Now, what you had wanted to know about why the anger towards Sheikh Mujib is because he was the one who simply tried to, take away our rights. He is the one who introduced the one-party system. He was the father of fascism. All his life, he fought for democracy. In 1971, he tried his best to negotiate with Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. He tried to assure President Yahya Khan, that in a free Pakistan, where he is prime minister, he will even allow, even if one person from West Pakistan talks sense, that the Awami League government will accept it. He seemed to be the model of a faith in democracy, but as he failed to be as an administrator. Around 1975, he ended up introducing the one-party rule, which was absolutely a violation of the reason why we became free. So he was the father of fascism. He was, he lost his life because he had asked for it. If he had respected the will of the people, if he had respected parliamentary democracy, if he had allowed the opposition to function just in the Westminster model that you now have in Pakistan too, a parliamentary system where there is an opposition, there is a free judiciary, you can talk freely. That's exactly what we Bangladeshis aspire to. We had always wanted. But he simply butchered democracy, and his daughter went one step further. Okay. So eventually, he took all the credit. His supporters, the Awami League, they seem to have been they monopolized the independence of the country. They tried to extract maximum benefit, and everybody who would oppose the Awami League ideology, they were considered as, traitors or something. So Mujib should have respected democracy. If Sheikh Mujib had respected democracy, his daughter may not have dared to sell the country to the Indians the way she did. Right now, it is a question of whether we should ban Awami League permanently or not. It will depend on the verdict of the judiciary. The case which is being tried and carried out in the courts, the Awami League leaders will be tried, and people here are absolutely serious that they should be tried fairly, but they should be tried strictly. And our attitude, most of us, what you said in the beginning about our feelings toward Pakistan, we have very warm feelings of brotherhood. One thing that we have learned out of this entire experience is that how badly we require each other. We feel the same way. We realize that it was the breakup was very painful, but right now it is our existential threat, and we require our mutual help. It would be something like returning to a sense of mutual trust and faith. The Indians are totally surprised that even I proposed the idea of a nuclear weapons treaty with Pakistan. This is something which is very widely appreciated, taken seriously. In fact, it might appear to be an extreme choice having the nuclear option in our country. But then the whole spirit of it, the idea that we will go to the extreme if necessary, if our backs are against the wall, even a nuclear option if necessary, we're just like Pakistan has its, the nuclear doctrine, the right of first use, as you call it, that if Pakistan faces the question of existence, it will not hesitate to be the first to use the nuclear option.
Yes.
That is, I think, the NATO doctrine also.
Yes.
So that is something which I, along with many of my colleagues who are, familiar with nuclear weapons doctrines, we also feel the same way, that with the help of Pakistan would be the most trustworthy because we were together as one country. And we more than any other country, we can trust Pakistan. That's what I told the army officers, retired officers, that if there is one country which will stand by us to help us safeguard our freedom, it's definitely going to be Pakistan, inshallah. So this has had a psychological impact on Indians. Yes. It has suddenly stunned them, So I was delighted with the whole idea that I broached.
Yeah. It resonated a lot over here in Pakistan as well, and we were actually quite surprised that this is coming from Bangladesh, and we were actually quite shocked in a very positive manner as well, because there was obviously a very low expectation from the Bangladesh side that they would ever call Pakistan to be a strategic partner in such a manner. And that was something very, very fascinating. So my next question will be about the minorities in Bangladesh. You've been there. There are certain kind of propaganda being perpetuated by the BJP IT cell and obviously in the Indian media that the Hindus especially are in severe danger right now in Bangladesh. What is the actual reality on ground as a Bangladesh intellectual element individual? How do you see it? Do you think that there is some sort of truth in it, or it's simple black propaganda being perpetuated by India?
It's absolutely entirely an Indian blueprint.
Hmm.
We were absolutely shocked in the last 2 months. It seemed that the whole thing was planned and masterminded by the Indian intelligence.
Hmm.
Suddenly they were screaming that there's a genocide of Hindus in
Yes,
Bangladesh.
yes, yes.
Thank God that the foreign embassies are there, especially the Western embassies, the Americans, the British, the European
Yes, yes.
Commission. They have been looking at the minorities. They have been constantly monitoring,
Hmm.
and they know the fact. If our interpretation of what the Indians say appears superficial, then the best way to check the truth is by asking the Westerners. And the
Hmm.
Westerners would know very well that in the Hindu minority, even the Christians and Buddhists,
Hmm.
they are no problem. The Christians and Buddhists never had any complaints. They have the complete. For the Hindus, I don't think in any other country
Hmm.
other than India do the Hindus have so much privilege. If you look at India, in West Bengal, Bihar, and UP, Muslims constitute almost like 20 to 30%, varying from district. And how much do the Muslims are employed? They get hardly 1%. In West Bengal, there is 30% Muslims,
Hmm.
yet there is only 1%. Over here in Bangladesh, the percentage of Hindus is hardly 8 to 9%. And you know what percentage of them now hold government jobs? Even senior government positions, 35 to 40% now.
Okay.
35 in the Awami League, filled up all the top positions in
Hmm.
the bureaucracy, all the top positions of intelligence services in the police with Hindu people in the BCS exams. They climbed the ladder faster. So, and then when you look at the other aspect of our life, they have their puja festivals freely. Thousands and thousands of puja pandals are created. In the university, it is a holiday. It's a national holiday for 3 days when there is Durga Puja, one after another. And they are millionaires. They're super rich.
Hmm.
The Hindu, they own some of the major companies in this country. They send to India millions of not rupees, in dollars. An Indian was caught in Calcutta. He had taken away so many million of dollars, and he bought many of the richest palatial buildings in Calcutta and in West Bengal. Right now, he is in the West Bengal jail. But all the money which he stole from Bangladesh, he served in a bank. And he broke all records in terms of stealing money from different banks. Now, how would it be possible if the Hindus are discriminated so badly? How
Hmm.
can a Hindu, how can not just one, hundreds and hundreds of Hindu position holders in the bureaucracy, they were part of corrupt money making. Hundreds and hundreds of them have settled in America, in Canada, and live like millionaires, having stolen the money. It's not just Hindus, others have done it too. But the Hindus were nothing, they were never, restrained from feeling like as if they're deprived. They
Hmm.
are rich, they're famous. And even if you look at Bangladesh now, many of the rich structures are owned by Hindus. So when the Indian government spreads this sort of rumors that Hindus are there's a genocide, they're getting killed, one has to come to Dhaka and see it for themselves. Most Hindus around, yeah, there have been incidents, stray incidents. That is because most of the Hindus were supporting Awami League. And when there was a crackdown by the people against the Awami Leaguers, Hindus and Muslims, there was no discrimination. It's not written on your forehead, I am a Hindu, So, it just happened that many of them fell victims. The Indians know it. The Indian government knows it very well. So the minorities in this country, in the Hindu, how many of them go to India and live there? You can check up. When they go to India and they find out how tough life is, they just run back to Bangladesh. Even today, how many of them have gone to India and settled down there? They'd live here with all the rights. The younger generation are even more aggressive. They enjoy all the facilities and all the good things of life. And honestly speaking, our younger generation or older generation, we hardly discriminate. You can see the Indian cricket player in the Bangladesh cricket team, Liton Das.
Yes.
He's one of the key players in the Bangladesh team. And there are others who are playing. Would it ever be possible if there was any discrimination against them? No.
Great. So my last couple of questions, but before that, I request that if this Zoom shuts down because the time is about to, there are only 8 minutes left, I think. So if it shut down, I'll send you the link again and you can join it from there. Will it be okay with you?
Would you please repeat the question?
The Zoom time is about to end in 8 minutes. So if it shuts down during our conversation, I'll resend the link and you can join it from there again. Will it be okay with you?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Fine with me.
Okay. So my last couple of questions. One of the question is that you met with Aisha. Aisha is a very good friend and a sister to me, and she also told me about the conversation that she had with you. I actually had a very good session with her as well when she came back from Bangladesh. She posted something on her social media which concerned me, and I asked her as well, and I'm going to ask the same question to you because obviously you are there on the ground. She sensed something that there is a growing kind of trend where some people would want to break away Bangladesh and would want to go towards West Bengal. I think you might understand what I'm asking about. So, do you think that there is a possibility, even in a far-fetched, mindset, that some people may, succeed to such a heinous, conspiracy and hatch it out against Bangladesh?
I have heard of it, and I have heard Indian military retired generals talk about it. And I was amazed that they would ever think that way. I have heard about, it's called like Hindu land out of Bangladesh. It's something like, I heard General Sharma, Lieutenant General Sharma and Major General Bhakti, retired. Both of them uttered these ideas. And younger retired army officers from India also, who were in these YouTube setups, they uttered these things. That's where I learned, that they were thinking in that way. Over here, Hindus are so scattered all over, even in every district, in every sphere, in every village. It's simply impossible. How do you carve out something, separate Hindu country? But the idea that came out from the Indian military people was like this, that they would like to, they have this narrow strip of land which joins the mainland India with the northeast. It's called the Shiliguri corridor. It's just like a chicken's neck, 25 kilometers. And China is just hardly 30 kilometers in the north, in Doklam. If the Chinese would ever swoop down, then they could reach Bangladesh. It's hardly 50 kilometers of difference. And Indians are scared that the Chinese could block that part. So the Indians have been talking about, using a blitzkrieg operation to take over 13 kilometers of our northern territory to serve an expansion of their chicken's neck. And they have been talking about it. Now, we came to know of it, and the idea is that they would create this sort of sensation among the Hindu population that they're getting genocide. There have been placards asking Hindus to go and settle in the northern part of Bangladesh instead of running away to India. That creates this funny idea that if they can pressure the Hindus to go and settle in the north, they would carve it out as a separate Hindu land. It's so obnoxious, ridiculous, because the Hindus are all scattered all over the country, and they have their original homes, they have their, forefathers' houses in some remote part. Why should they leave their forefathers' house and go to the northern part to fulfill the Indian scheme? So this sort of a scheme to bifurcate Bangladesh, it's ridiculous. I mean, but that's exactly the reason that if the Indians try such game, who knows that they may have a scheme. We have been told that the Indians have put enough forces in the northern part, in the Shiliguri cantonment, and the air base at Bagdogra, which is nearby. They have placed their Rafale fighters.
Yes.
And if any Chinese movement in the south, they would act with lightning speed and cut off the northern part of our country. Right now, there are new rumors that there was an Indian general talking about it, that they went back to the days of Mahabharata and tried to find out the source of why Chittagong was named. In Bangla, we call it Chottogram. And they tried to find a similar expression going back several thousand years back, trying to argue that this was where one of the places where the Rig Veda literature had made sense, not only Hinduism, but that this was the holy part of Buddhists too. So the idea is that they're trying to create an argument to cut off the entire city of Chittagong and take away our hill tracts. It's partly because of the strategic reason that they have developed a coastal route through Sitwe to send troops to the northeast. Now, Sitwe is the capital of Arakan, and the Arakan army is so powerful that they have defeated the Tatmadaw, the Myanmar army, and they have surrounded Sitwe. In Sitwe, the Myanmar army is isolated. But the Chinese have warned the Arakan army not to allow any possibility of giving any link or stretch of link that would pass through the Kaladan River up to Mizoram. And they have been planning to use the Bangladeshi coastal route. In case the road links are blocked and the Northeast breaks up, they would do that. Today, they have found out a new allegation against Bangladesh. There has been a separatist struggle going on in Mizoram. And today, they have alleged that Bangladeshis and Pakistan together, we are encouraging insurgency in Nagaland.
Yes.
And we have been bracketed together. The religious groups in Bangladesh, Jamaati, and Pakistan, the Pakistani intelligence is now. Today, this was in the Indian national news.
Yes.
From Mizoram, it is spreading. I personally feel good that the Indians are giving us so much importance and so much credit. And the very fact that Mizoram, Nagaland, Assam, these are, gradually become hotspots. If those people had the right to decide, they would have probably preferred better link with China. After all, China is just not. China claims the Arunachal, southern Tibet, which they call, Indians call Arunachal Pradesh, It's just north of Assam. It's not very far away from our northern borders. Chinese are very serious about southern Tibet, which they think have been taken away. And because the Brahmaputra River also flows through that place.
Last couple of questions, because I've already taken a lot of time from you, and I'm sure it's quite late now over there. I've visited Afghanistan a lot of times, especially after the takeover of Taliban over there. And I have also observed and experienced the same element over there as well. There was a kind of image inside Pakistan, or there was a kind of perception inside Pakistan that probably Afghans do not like us. But when I went there, I found out that majority of Afghans, they actually, obviously, Pakistan is their second home. 4 million Afghans are right now in Pakistan, so they cannot hate Pakistan. So they're a very small minority that obviously have a negative sentiments towards Pakistan. So it's always there. It's always in every segment of the country. But my last question, sir,
Exactly.
there were quite a few figures and economic indicators that were projected over here in Pakistan. That was also projected by World Economic Forum, and there were certain other forums as well, who projected that the Bangladeshi economy was booming under the Hasina's rule. But and obviously many political players over in Pakistan, they played out on this phenomena as well, that due to the corruption in Pakistan, we are lagging behind even from Bangladesh. So how true was that? Was it a bubble? Was it a reality? Or do you think that it was there, but somehow it got corrupted?
You see, it was a reality to the extent that a lot of people had lots of money, but that was not the greater majority.
Hmm.
People who were into business, people who were with the Army League supporter, for them, they became, not just millionaires, they became billionaires.
Hmm.
They sent money, but the thing is that the debt crisis has also gone up. We could have become like Sri Lanka, as bad as Sri Lanka, because the amount of money that had borrowed from China and from other sources, Hasina's government had been marauders. They had looted the most of the money. Projects that could have been built at lesser cost were built with multiplied costs.
Hmm.
Even when you make a comparison between the Lahore metro and the Dhaka metro, the Lahore metro took up much earlier in, I think, 2018, and your costs were lesser and it is far more efficient. Our metro had to wait until 2022 to cover the Dhaka city, and the costs were exorbitant. So much of the money was spent. And there are other mega projects which were considered white elephants, like building tunnels under the Kornufuli River in Chittagong. It's hardly used. It's not used so much. And then, the Russian nuclear plant, it is yet to be opened. The costs have been exorbitant. It is more of many of these Hasina projects were for the purpose of exhibition, rather than substance. We could have had far better development in terms of real economic growth, removing the poverty level, rather than this Hasina style development. It is this a lot of it has been propaganda for her to stay in power for the rest of her life. Now, in fact, we are, thank God, the bunch of economists who have now taken over have made the repayments to the debt without really turning into the reserves. And our recovery has been, this is the one thing where this caretaker government has done well. The
Hmm.
group of economists, the professor who looks after finance, and then Professor Yunus himself, and then, of course, Professor Wahiduddin Mahmood. He was, in fact, a graduate from Quaid-e-Azam University and a PhD from Cambridge. He is the planning minister and then the governor of the Bangladesh Bank. They have held important positions in the IMF and the World Bank. The most important thing is to recover all the money which has been looted,
Hmm.
billions of dollars. And there has been some good progress to get the looted money and to extradite those who have escaped after removing so much of the national wealth. But inshallah, we have a good deal of manpower export. The money that has been coming through our laborers has been very encouraging, despite all the transition upheaval. And in the near future, I think the government would have to think of elections. But before that, there has to be two things that has to be priority. First, the trials, a genuine trial of the past regime, which will be internationally supervised. We already had the president of the Human Rights Commission. He came here, he saw the proceedings, and he was satisfied. America, the US is also very eager to see that the last regime is tried. We've got to ensure that there has to be harsh punishment so that this sort of fascist government should never emerge ever. But beyond that, we would also like to see good, effective security cooperation with Pakistan and China. This is absolutely essential for our survival as a sovereign state. We would like to develop durable links with Pakistan. And I personally believe that at some point or other, there has to be some cooperation on the area of nuclear, weapons aspect, because this is something where we have learned over the last few months that we cannot trust India. Indians have been they believe they've got this great power complex. And the foreign minister is extremely ambitious. He openly talks about, he even mentioned to a Western journalist that the very creation of Bangladesh, to quote him, is a threat to the security of the North-East.
Okay.
Exactly what he said. At a time when India's relations with Hasina government was very close. And this sort of utterance indicates Indian intentions that the more Hasina would have tried to cultivate close ties, I think the more of our sovereignty would have been stolen away.
Right.
And that is something which we cannot afford.
Thank you so much, sir.
And we wish Pakistan also, we wish that Pakistan would emerge. It is heartening to know that Pakistan has discovered a huge reservoir of offshore oil.
Yes.
We certainly in Bangladesh hope that Pakistan's economic growth will take off more effectively. And after all, both of our countries have lots of people who need to climb the economic ladder.
Yes. Yes.
That is where the real focus should be in our relations between our two brotherly countries.
Inshallah. So thank you so much for being here, for giving so much time and detailing all these elements and discussing about all these issues. I hope that sooner than later I'll be hosting you and a few other brothers and sisters from Bangladesh over in Pakistan and Islamabad, and I wish to come over there at Dhaka as well, and I hope that I'll be seeing you in person someday, inshallah, very soon. And thank you so
Sure.
thank you so much once again.